Did you know that in London, a young woman rented an apartment through a rental app and was murdered just a few hours later? And that's not even the worst part. After taking her life, this person decided to impersonate her and send messages to her loved ones. If you want to know everything that happened, stay with me until the end of the video. Hello everyone, how are you? My name is Lesma. I hope you are doing very well. As always, I'm very happy to be here with you for another day and very grateful that you are watching me from wherever you are. Today we have a case that happened in England, that of Komanan Tiampipat. Join me to see all the details. Komanan Tiampipat, who years later would adopt the name Angela, and how we will refer to her in this video, was born around 1996 in Thailand, being the only child of a woman named Fiona Fu, who after divorcing moved to Hong Kong with her daughter. From that moment on, Angela began a new chapter. And over the years, she not only kept her original nationality, but also became a permanent resident of Hong Kong. In parallel, her mother also grew stronger, and the two had a close bond. By 2014, true to her determined character and ambitions, she made a very difficult decision: to leave her mother and continue her studies abroad. According to those who knew her, Angela dreamed big and aspired to build a career that would also allow her to support her loved ones financially. In that way, she moved to a boarding school in Wales, and later continued her education at the University of the Arts London. Over time, settled and comfortable in her new environment, the young woman decided to establish herself permanently in that place. While working at an IT company, Angela had a clear goal: to open her own hotel one day and become a successful businesswoman. On a personal level, she is known to have been in a stable relationship with a guy named Chris Zheng, who was about her age. Thus, Angela's routine went on between projects, friends, and future plans. Determined to move forward with her goals, Angela concluded that the most logical path for her was to start a small property management business. However, before making that leap, she calculated that she first needed to train in that field, and began renting a property to then sublet it through some platforms. In this way, according to her thinking, she would gain direct experience in the business. Thus, towards the end of 2023, Angela found the property that seemed to fit her plans perfectly. It was a luxurious and elegant mansion located in one of the most coveted areas of London. The property was valued at $5 million. It had 6 bedrooms. Things went perfectly for her, and at the beginning of 2024, she signed a 2-year contract. And so, she and her boyfriend Chris moved into the home. From that moment on, in order to turn it into a profitable source through short-term rentals, the young woman poured all her savings, time, and dedication into refurbishing and decorating the place. Once the work was finished, she listed the property on a hosting platform, which was backed by its privileged location and proximity to several tourist spots. Thus, Angela began to be a superhost and harvest very good reviews. In this way, more than 10 years after settling in London, it seemed that the girl was finally achieving her goals. Once the work was finished, she listed the property on a hosting platform, which was backed by its privileged location and proximity to several tourist spots. Thus, Angela began to be a superhost and harvest very good reviews. In this way, more than 10 years after settling in London, it seemed that the girl was finally achieving her goals. With this background, we come to Friday, April 5, 2024, which was a day like any other for the young woman. Chris, her boyfriend, was traveling in Singapore, so that night Angela decided to accept an invitation from some friends. The evening was going completely normally, but suddenly, in the early hours of Saturday the 6th, Angela announced she had to leave. She said she had an emergency at home and, without giving further explanations, ordered a car through an app and left. Meanwhile, thousands of miles away, and with a 7-hour time difference, Chris learned of Angela's strange trip from the gathering. He was also puzzled and wrote to her asking what had happened. Her response was brief, saying she was tired, and that would be the last conversation they would have. Minutes before 5 in the morning, the driver dropped her off at her home, and since Chris was left with the feeling that Angela hadn't told him something, he kept trying to contact her. but although he sent messages and called her repeatedly, it was all in vain. Angela stopped responding. Thus, the situation became quite unusual. Late Saturday morning, Chris received a message. Seeing it was Angela, concern finally gave way to relief. But this feeling lasted very little because although the text included an apology for the delay, something didn't fit. It was written in English, and they usually communicated in Chinese. The content didn't help clear up doubts either. Angela told him she had changed her phone and that's why she couldn't speak normally. She also said she had to reinstall all her apps. Then she assured him that the house had been rented for a month, that she had lost her contacts and that she was trying to recover them. The strangest thing was that she mentioned a supposed trip to Paris and asked Chris to contact her through another messaging app. He asked for the new number to reach her and she gave him one with an international code. Far from reassuring him, all of this made his anxiety and unease increase even more. It wasn't just about the language anymore, it was about the style and tone, which weren't like her. So suspicion was immediate. Angela wasn't writing those messages. Concerned for his girlfriend's safety, he immediately contacted several mutual friends in London and asked them to visit her to see how she was. It was then that during the night of Sunday, April 7th, several of Angela's friends arrived and knocked on her door. However, there was no response. So, faced with the silence and concern, they decided to contact the police and explain what was happening. But the response from the authorities was minimal. They limited themselves to filing a report and giving them a reference number. At the insistence of the friends, a key step was taken a few hours later. The police decided to escalate the case and referred it to an independent watchdog. This was because the disappearance had initially been classified as low risk. But with this new approach, at 8 in the morning on Monday, April 8th, the officers made a decision. They would force entry into Angela's home. When they finally managed to enter, they found a scene that left them paralyzed. Inside was a lifeless body, and they realized it was Angela's. It had multiple puncture wounds in different parts of the body, and the weapon used was at the scene. It was recorded that her time of death had been at 8:30 in the morning, and the scene was properly cordoned off for the forensic experts to begin their work. Shortly after, through fingerprint analysis and verification of all records, there was official confirmation that the deceased person was Angela. She was 27 years old. Chris immediately received the news via a call from the officers. Almost in parallel, the young woman's mother was also notified in Hong Kong. Thus, in a matter of hours, the tragedy began to take on international relevance, reaching different loved ones of the girl in different parts of the world. Likewise, the case also began to shake London due to its level of brutality. Subsequently, forensic analysis allowed for a more precise reconstruction of what had happened inside the house. The wounds had been inflicted with maximum violence at different times during the attack, indicating a prolonged and especially aggressive episode. For their part, the authorities also said that Angela probably knew her attacker. As the days and weeks went by, the investigation failed to make clear progress, and a month after the incident, Angela's mother traveled to London to say goodbye to her daughter, and at the same time meet with the police seeking answers about the person responsible. In statements to the press, she stated that the crime had left her completely devastated. It was in this context that an element emerged that would change the focus of the case. It was the first concrete clue, and also the first time the figure of a possible suspect appeared. Chris, who had accompanied Fiona to the funeral and the meeting with the police, told officers that days before traveling to Singapore, Angela had called him to say that a man had contacted her through a short-term rental platform. She mentioned that he was supposedly interested in renting the entire property for a month and said he would pay £30,000. According to what Angela recounted, the man was scheduled to visit the house on Friday, April 5th. However, she did not give her boyfriend further details about this person's identity. She only commented that he was wealthy, had arrived in London by private jet, and had a son. Later, after finalizing the meeting, Angela contacted Chris again to tell him that the man had been very satisfied with the visit, and that the proposal was even more tempting. He wanted to extend the duration of this contract to 3 months and would raise the transaction to £90,000. However, with this supposed great opportunity, a key detail appeared. Angela explained to him that they had both agreed to proceed outside the platform to avoid commissions. The man was also pressing to move in the same day, and according to Chris's account, he had told Angela he was worried the booking wouldn't be approved due to anti-party policies, which usually block entire rentals made at the last minute. It was a problem she had faced before and had even caused her to lose money. With this argument, he proposed to handle the deal directly and make a transfer the next day. This was corroborated by the woman's mother, who said she also knew about the situation and that her daughter hadn't been worried at all about the facts. Even so, after the man settled into the property, Angela contacted Chris again to tell him she had decided not to stay in the house. According to Chris, she told him she didn't think it was safe or prudent to live with a man about whom she had practically no information. As a result, she planned to stay in a hotel and then look for a more permanent place. Shortly after that exchange, Angela met with her friends. And it is on this dinner that the police focused a lot because according to Angela's family and friends, she didn't usually leave places like that. In addition to this, her relatives also began to make various statements to the local press, asserting that they were devastated and asking for justice for the young woman. Likewise, both Angela's mother and boyfriend expressed concern about identity verification contracts on rental platforms. Chris especially was very forceful, saying that Angela had been too trusting. Furthermore, the repercussions were immediate. For its part, the rental company pointed out in a statement that although the case had shocked them, the fact that it had occurred within the framework of a booking managed outside its platform was not something that involved them. Regarding the questioning of procedures, they said they did ask for the full name, email, and phone number. But again, they repeated that since Angela had decided to leave the platform and continue the booking outside, they didn't have much data on who this person was. As for the authorities, they were also forced to respond to criticism, as they were being harshly criticized for not acting with the speed needed in this case. Meanwhile, the investigation continued. The police confirmed to Angela's relatives that there was no doubt that the subject in question was the main suspect. At that point, they said they had already managed to identify and locate him. But there was a complicated detail, and that is that the man had already left the United Kingdom. And while the police tried to proceed with the case, Angela's relatives decided to say goodbye to her. Her ashes were taken to a ceremony in Thailand, while her family tried to process the harsh loss. Thus, weeks went by and no progress was seen in the case. It wasn't until April 2026 that the identity of the man they had listed as missing was finally revealed. A 16-year-old boy at the time of the events, named Enzo Bettamio, who held dual Brazilian and Italian nationality. 2 days later, on Friday, April 24th, Enzo, who was already 18 by this time, was extradited from the United Arab Emirates. Upon his arrival in the UK, he was arrested and taken to a police station, formally charged with murder. Subsequently, as the news echoed in the press, this boy appeared in court via video link. During the fairly brief hearing, he limited himself to confirming his name, address, and place of birth. And according to what the prosecution presented to the jury, the boy had quite strange behavior in the hours before going to the hearing. This especially caught the attention of investigators. The judge ordered his pre-trial detention and a provisional trial date was set for February 2027. In a statement, the police noted that the family will be kept informed of all developments. And meanwhile, everyone in the world is asking one question. How much do we think we know about the people living next to us? And until we know more details of this shocking case, think about one thing. What happened when this person lost control? And why did he decide to take Angela's life? And well guys, that's it for today's video. A case in which a young woman ended up trusting a stranger and things got out of hand. The good thing is that he has already been arrested. Imagine a minor, a 16-year-old person was capable of doing something so horrible. Think about what he could do as an adult. We really hope he spends the rest of his days in prison. If you found this video informative, remember to leave a like and remember to subscribe if you haven't already. I update 3 or 4 times a week, and if you're subscribed, you'll get a notification every time I upload a video. Now, see you in another case. Goodbye.